All right, welcome to our group meeting for the container security group. Looks like we've got a couple new things to demo from Alexander. I don't have either of those pulled up at the moment, but maybe I can just share the notes document. Looks like they're making some good progress on building out the UI for our scan execution policies. So it looks like Alexander's been working to add in the YAML mode for editing, which is great. So you can now select which policy type you want to have, and scan execution is an option. And then you can enter the YAML for that policy there. And then Paul's been working on the policy page. It still is here in this tab, but it looks like he's added a policy type column. So you can see it's a network. All of these are network type policies. So yeah, great work. I'm glad to see the progress there and looking forward to when we can default that feature flag to on for everyone. So for the next one, I wanted to put the container scanning, we've kind of gone through a few different names here, the production container scanning or cluster image scanning work through planning breakdown. I think we already did this on the back end, but we have not done the front end planning breakdown piece. So, and actually some of this may end up impacting the scope of the backend work just slightly, but I don't think it's going to be any sort of huge change. So Annabelle, if you want to talk to this one, you're welcome to. Otherwise, looks like you put up a good video ahead of time.
Yeah, if I don't have to walk through it, then great. If Alan, were you able to watch the video? Okay, then I don't know if it's worth me walking through it all again. I did see that Matt commented on the issue about the tab naming, that he might not like the pipeline operational tabs. He prefers application operational. I need to go back to our last two participants who were clear. We asked what application meant to them, and they said, I believe it was more to do with your code. So they were thinking like application only means SAST, dependency scanning, maybe they're thinking it doesn't. I don't know. I've got to go back and look at that. And then Ethan finally got back to me too, and he said that he preferred operational and pipeline. So I will go back and might have to talk to Matt a little bit more to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, so I guess I'm not 100% sure who's the DRI for this decision, if it's myself or Matt, but we do need to make a decision. So yeah, I can try to sync up with Matt as well, but for now, I think we just need to make the call and make a decision and go with it. So for now, let's plan on pipeline and operational, and yeah, let's chat with Matt. And I think that's a great idea to go back and just revisit those again, but it's a two-way door decision is the nice thing. So, even though we need to make a decision so we can go forward and implement it, it's not like it's stuck forever. We can always go back and change it later if we get good feedback or research that shows that something else is a better choice.
Yeah, and luckily it's not really it's not a change for people who are already using the existing vulnerabilities report, because they'll just end up on that first tab anyway. So they won't notice a difference. And a few of our people or of our users didn't even notice the tabs at the top. So hopefully it won't change much for them. We can also do like a call out. Once we add this new tab, we can add a little pop-up that's like, hey, new feature, here's where you're going to find certain vulnerabilities, dismiss, and then you'll never see it again.
Yep, absolutely. And with all of this, I did want to just highlight a couple of things in the mocks where there's a little bit more collaboration between the front end, back end. I think for the most part, everything is really independent. Excuse me. So I think the groups can work almost entirely independently. As I was thinking about it just a little bit more, I realized that this empty state does have a small dependency on the back end. So the first iteration that Alan, you're working on isn't really created by a policy. It's just part of the pipeline job. And so this mock would have to wait until you actually can manage these through a policy. So that would be, one dependency that I've identified. And then one other dependency in here is where there's going to have to be just a little bit of coordination between the front end and the back end is in the cluster certificate details. So oh, this is not the right page. Anyway, it's that piece where you set the access token, the service token for running the job. There's going to have to be front end and back end coordination for that last piece. Great. Unfortunately, we don't have anyone from the front end on at the moment, but Alexander said looks great, very exciting stuff. So I'm going to assume that this is good to go and we can move this on to the refinement phase.
That extra token issue that I worked on Friday, Victor has some questions about that too. And I honestly don't know how to answer them because I just don't know much about this. So I think he was confused about having two tokens and what happens if you only fill out one of them, or I don't know if there is a better solution on that issue. Let me link it.
Okay, yeah, thanks. I can help to address some of those. Maybe Alan, you can as well.
Okay, there's the link.
All right, so then the last area I wanted to talk about was improved container scanning matching. This is one that has been kind of having slow discussions for a number of months now. Just wanted to clarify the problem to be solved here is that sometimes customers have different branching strategies. We kind of assume that they all follow a default branching strategy where they're all merging everything into the default branch, and that's their release branch, but not all customers do that. Sometimes they actually release off of other branches besides the default branch. And right now we don't support that very well in GitLab today in a variety of ways, but it would be the idea that you have your default branch, and then you also, suppose you're working on the 14.1 release, you would create a 14.1 branch, and then you would create feature branches off of that. You merge your features into the 14.1 branch, and then when that releases, you merge that back up into the default branch. But you actually release off of that other branch, the 14.1 branch. And so when customers are doing container scanning, the branch that they want to compare these to sometimes is not the default branch. They actually want things compared against a different branch, a feature branch. We don't, again, there are a number of different ways that we don't support this well in GitLab, but one of those is the way that we handle deduplication of findings with container scanning based off of the image name. So we look for basically an identical image name, and then if it has a different tag, then we deduplicate it, but we don't have any sort of more advanced logic to support more flexible naming conventions in the image name. So just to share this example, what we do today is if your image is named, my namespace / my project, and then the tag is latest, and then you have another version of my namespace / my project, and you change the tag for a different branch, that works really well. We do duplicate correctly, it all works out. The problem is that not all customers use this naming convention with their container scanning images. Sometimes, they organize things by changing the name of the image itself, like they'll insert the name of the branch or the name of the release, and they actually still want these things to be deduplicated and instead of showing duplicates. So that's really the problem to be solved. There's a pretty long chain of ideas here in the comments section on how we might go about solving that problem. But without getting into the implementation solution, that's really what we're wanting to solve, is just introduce more flexibility for customers who have different naming strategies. And actually, there's no guarantee that all customers are going to follow this exact naming convention. They all may have slightly different naming conventions. So ideally, the solution will give us the flexibility to define, which part of this string is static and, should be compared to identify an identical image for deduplication, and which part of the string is variable and should be disregarded. It looks like from the comments in here, this one is not quite ready to move on to refinement, but I just wanted to bring some attention to it since this is the next thing on the container scanning list after we finish our production container scanning. And so just wanted to bring some attention to it since that's coming up in the near future. That being said, are there any other topics to discuss for today? Actually, I just realized Sashi has a couple of questions in here I should probably address. He says, are we going to implement a solution that works only for images from GitLab Container Registry? I would say ideally no. We should find a generic solution. And then how should the matching work for multiple container scanning jobs? I don't know that really makes a difference if you have multiple container scanning jobs. Would that make a difference, Alan? I would think that you would still handle the deduplication in the same way for each job.
Yeah, exactly. So you'd have like reports, containers, scanning reports, and they will be duplicated in the same way.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't think that should make any difference if they have multiple jobs in the pipeline. Okay, anything else to discuss today? Great, thanks everyone. Have a great week.